Have you ever bought yourself a book? It's a soft covered book, but it should never have been a soft covered book. Have a look at this one. This is my new Roget's Thesaurus. Look at the thickness. And it's hopeless. It's a soft covered book. It's not going to stand up by itself or anything. So I'm going to show you how to turn this big floppy monster into a sort of a hard covered book. So first of all, what you need to do is you need to measure the size of the covers and the spine, and then you need to get hold of some of this stuff here, which is modeling cardboard. So it's what architects use for making models, for architectural models, and it's heavy and you can't cut it with scissors. It's very hard and rigid. So you can get this from an artist shop. Okay, and I'll show you how to cut it. The cutting is a bit hazardous because you could easily just slice your finger off, so this is the dangerous part. I'll show you now. So if you did handwork at school, you would have used these. It's a safety cutting ruler with a steep edge there, and this a safety cutting knife with a place to put your finger for cutting. Unfortunately, this is the spine of my book here. I want to cut this cardboard here, but unfortunately you're not always so fortunate as to have such a short piece that the ruler fits on. So often I have to resort to using a flat ruler and a leather cutting knife. A leather cutting knife has a much sharper point, so you can actually, and it's the point of the knife you want to use. So I'll just show you how this works. You take the steep edge of the leather, of the safety ruler, and you put it on the line, like so, and then you use the point of the knife, not the blade of the knife, the point, which has to be very sharp, and you always run it towards you like this, not across in front of you. So you always run it like this, with the point down, and start gently, just score it gently, because the cardboard, once you've got a groove, the knife will follow the groove. Don't try too hard, and so you just patiently keep going like that. Now this is a relatively easy one because it's a relatively short run, but you can imagine how tedious it is to have to do quite a big piece of cardboard, and if you just use the point, this comes away nicely. So there's my nice piece of cardboard with nice edges ready to go into my book. So now I'm going to show you, here's my floppy old Roget. I've cut the cardboard for the covers, and I've cut the cardboard, as you saw, for the spine of the book. And now you don't want to glue the cardboard over the cover because that would obliterate the title and so on. So these cardboard sheets that I've cut to this size, not the same width. You see I've left a gap along there. You can't cut them to the same size otherwise, because they can't fit in there because it's fairly thick. So these go inside, on the inside of the cover like this, okay, on the front and the back like this. You see they don't show because they don't go all the way to the spine like that. So you've got those, and then this is going to actually cover over. I'm going to do this on the outside, you'll see, and I'll show you why, because then what I'll do is I'm going to tape over these edges to hold the whole thing rigid, so it becomes a hard cover. So next step now is to glue these onto the insides of the covers, not this one yet, and then put them in a press to let them dry. And I tend to use PVA waterproof glue for these. So that's the next step. Right, for the gluing of this to go on the inside of the cover, you need a nice broad headed brush, like something like that. And I use, this is Selly's exterior wood glue, so it's waterproof. It's Aquadear, so it's PVA glue, but it's for exterior use, which is good. So that, I mean, if your books get wet, in that case, I think if your books get wet, you might as well throw them away anyway. But it's So you need to squirt this onto the cardboard that you're going to use, not too much. You want a relatively thin layer. Something like that. Now, the thing to do is with all gluing, you always, whenever you apply glue, you always have a backing sheet. And you need also, when you rub, you have a rubbing sheet. Well, I probably won't use a rubbing sheet. And you use your brush and you work away from the center towards the outside of the sheet that you're gluing. So you work over the edges like this. Keep your finger in the middle and make sure the glue reaches the outer edges. So, and so on. Also, this glue, you can use it when it's relatively wet or slightly dry. Once you let it dry, but it sticks fast and you can't really change its position, so it's probably best to use it when it's slightly wet, so you can change it around and jiggle it into position where you want it. So you should have now. Now, one of the problems, if you don't hold your sheet still, it shifts and it gets glue on the wrong side. You see the glue's going over the edges onto the waste sheet. So try and hold your sheet fairly stationary, otherwise you're going to have that problem. So once you've done that, now with a little blob in the middle and a blob there, probably just cover that over. This glue is waterproof. Now I've got glue on my finger, so I've got a minute or so. Try and work clean if you can. So the next step is to put this on the inside of the book carefully. Okay. Comes up, and as best you can, fit it into the inside cover of the book like this, and then fold it over like so. Now you can see some sticking out there still, because that's okay, because we can actually probably shift it in, because the glue's still wet, so you can shift it in a little more, maybe chock it down a bit. Yeah, that's better. So now what we've got is we've got our glued sheet on the inside of the cover, and that needs to be pressed down. We're going to do the other one in a second. So I'll just put that here. I'm going to press it down very hard in a minute, but I just want to keep it. No, that's not good. I'm going to keep it pressed down very firmly while I do the other side. So now you've got a sheet of waste paper with a glue on it, so you get rid of that and have a nice clean waste sheet ready. Now for the other sheet. So you don't want to leave that other one for too long, because it'll stick down with bubbles. I'm going to put it under a heavy weight in a minute for it to dry, and I'll probably leave it overnight before I come back to the spine. So once again, not too much and not too little, about so much of the PVA glue. I've got the brush here. Once again, finger in the middle and work away towards the edges like this. And the same gluing technique goes if you're using Prit or Uhu or whatever you like to call it, the stick paste. Same thing. If you're gluing something down, we use a waste sheet underneath and rub the glue stick out from the center towards the edges. And you can see I've got quite a bit of glue on this one, probably too much. So there's a happy medium. This is too much glue. Okay. So what I might do is just remove it by taking it off onto the waste sheet. Of course the thing's swiveling around, which is not ideal. Okay, work towards the outside. I'm breaking my own rules. Work towards the outside of the sheet. Still too much glue there, but probably be alright. Now comes the next tricky bit. This has to be placed on the inside of the cover, the book cover. Once again, glue on the finger, work clean. That's time for the back cover. Same deal. See, it's quite clean on that side. And place this into the corner there. Whoops, it's just shifted. And once again, and you can see it's sticking out again, so you have to jiggle it, but fortunately this time with lots of glue, so it'll move easily probably. Whoops, there you go. So now I'm going to take this and put it into a book press upstairs. And one of the problems is when you put the book into the book press, the glue will ooze out along the edges. Look, it's already happened, and get on the pages. It's already happened. So what you need then is you need a waste sheet to go in there in case any of this glue squeezes out. Okay, so I've already done that here, which is silly. So I'll show you now. The next thing I'll show you is putting it into the press with the waste sheets in between and squeezing it down. Okay, so here we are here. Now I'm going to put the waste sheets This is quite absorbent blotting paper. That's got to go between the glue sheet and my book to protect from ooze, and the same on the front. So this is a kind of a protection sheet. You can see already that's stuck to there, which we don't want. Which is bad news. We don't want that sticking on there. And this is like blotting paper here, so there. And underneath there I've got a sheet. Now we hope this fits in here, yes, into the press. And you want it sitting nice and square in the press, like that. Now usually I would put a sheet of paper over the top as well. This is a tight fit, but I think it'll be alright, okay? That's about as thick as this press can take. Try and get it all the way in. Yep, there we go. So we've got protective sheets inside, and we've got a sheet on either edge. And now this is a book press, so you can actually turn this down now as tight as you like, and it squeezes, and nice two flat metal plates are squeezing down on those glued surfaces, and that's going to stay like that overnight. And then I'll take it out tomorrow and we'll show you how to glue the spine of the book and finish it off. By the way, this is a present from Bev for a birthday a while ago. Very valuable antique sort of book press thing. It's great, love it. Okay, so I've just taken the book out of the press, and you can see it's glued very nicely onto the cardboard inside. And I've taken out these protective sheets, but inevitably you're going to get some little problems like this. For example, you can see that the glue has oozed out along the edges of the cardboard and stuck to the paper underneath. So that's easily remedied. You just get a pair of scissors and just trim along the edge. Just take that excess oozed glue off the edges and just tidy it up. That's easy enough. That's not a problem. You could even do that with a knife, maybe. Like that. Okay, so we might come back to that and do a better job of that. There's still little bits hanging out, but that's easily dealt with as long as it's not glued in there, but it hasn't, you see, so it's fine. So the next step now is to glue the spine. Now you are going to cover the details on this spine here, so you might have to photocopy that and stick it on afterwards or whatever. Okay, I'm just going to write on it. I'm not fussed about how it looks really, but the front cover will still be available. So what I want to do now is I want to glue this piece of cardboard onto the spine, and that's not so easy because you can see the spine is slightly hollow, so it's a bit tricky to get this to stick on, but fortunately this Silly's glue is very powerful. So I'll show you how I'm going to do it. So there's no need for me to have taken you through the gluing of this cardboard on the spine of the book, but I need to show you how to press it. So what I've done is I've glued the cardboard up and I've put it onto the book, but the problem is if you want to weight it down, the book tends to splay out and then the whole thing collapses. So what you need, oh that's rain outside. So what you need to do is, you need to sort of like an engineering thing here, you build up supports on either side of the book up until almost the top of the book, and then what you do then is to press down your glue job onto the spine. You put some heavy books on top, now like that. So this will have to stay like this for several hours again, and then we'll take that out and show you the next step. Sometimes I use the heavy cast iron press as a weight, but in this case it would be too heavy. I'm sure it would force the whole thing apart, so books are great for this job. Righto, so here we go for the next stage. You can see that now I have glued that cardboard onto the spine and the glue has dried, and remember we put cardboard on the inside of the covers, which makes it nice and rigid, but there's only one problem. You can have a look at the edge here. Between the spinal cardboard and the one on the inside of the cover, there's an area that's going to keep on folding, and that's going to become weak. So what we want to do is we want to unite the spine with the cardboard of that, and to do that I've got book cloth. Now you might not have book cloth, and you can see book cloth is literally what it says. It's got cloth covered with some kind of sealant. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue these bits of book cloth to unite the spine with the cover. But I've also, because I used to do bookbinding, I've got some of this reinforcing gauze. Now you might not have these fancy bits and pieces, you don't need them. All you need is a nice bit of off-cut cloth, you know, some nice finely woven cotton, you know, from an old pair of pants or something, and just cut it up, and it'll do the job perfectly because it will then form a hinge between the two. So I'm now going to glue them up and stick them onto that corner there, and it's the same idea. You can see that I've got the gauze in the middle, and I'm going to smooth the glue on out towards the edges and then transfer it onto the corner of the book. And remember I said you never rub onto something when you're gluing it. You always have a rubbing sheet. So for example, this is my rubbing sheet for this one. Whoops, it's got a bit of glue on it still. You always put your rubbing sheet over and rub on the rubbing sheet. You never rub directly onto the actual thing that you're trying to glue down. So the rubbing sheet is for, you can rub vigorously without making brown marks from dirty fingers and things like that. And then often you'll get some glue on the inside of the rubbing sheet because it squeezes out, and like that. See, it's come out of there. Now you can see this, I haven't put this down very well. It's a bit of a gap here and it's overlapping here, but that's not, it's not ideal. I should rather have gone there, but it's too late to move it now. So what I'll do is I'll wait until it's dry, and then I'll just trim that off. When I trim the edges of the pages as before, I'll trim that off as well, so that'll be fine. It's a bit gapey, but now, so that's one piece. So the next piece will come on this side over here. Same idea. So that's the next step. Glue up this one with the gauze on the inside, and then glue it onto there. Okay, so look, it's never going to be the British Library. I'm going to put a label on this back here, and the sides are still wet. Okay, so it's still wet. And one thing you'll notice now is that the cardboard and the paper start to shrink, and you get the covers gaping like this. Okay, so what you have to do now is, while it's still all nice and wet, is put it back into the book press, press it flat again, and just leave it. It's finished now, except for the spine. But as I say, the next step to creating your hardcover book, remember how floppy it was? It's now much more solid. It'll stand up in a bookshelf. So, as I say, the next step now is for it to go back into that press and press it until it's completely dry. And so, there it is. A soft, floppy, huge Thesaurus converted into a hardcover Thesaurus. My next job is to put tags in A, B, C, D, so I can quickly get to the letter of the alphabet I'm interested in. So here we go. Once again, I've got a little protection sheet at the bottom, and as I said, this just fits into my book press. Get it in nice in the middle, and a protective sheet on the top, if I can get it in. Yep. Pretty tight fit, that'll do, that'll do. And then tighten it down so that it dries flat. Nice and tight. That'll do it. Yep. And that can stay for quite a long time. So let's try. So there we are. All done.